Yeah. Listen. Might as well start off right.
What's up, fam? It's your boy Mog, live for you here at Wake Up News. What's up, David, Coco, Rico, Sedano? Thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody, we're listening to a little K Reno today, hitting the punching bag, reading the book, The Powers That Be, written in 1979, laying down just how blatantly the media was skewing the narrative all the way back then. As usual, we're taking a look at the Jackson Hole Daily here at Wake Up Wyoming. What's up, Helen Ford? What's up, David, Coco, Rico, Sedano? That was some hip-hop, some K Reno out of Houston. Hopefully he's doing all right in the wake of Hurricane Harvey. We got a big show for you today, so let's get right into it. First and foremost, top headline today, don't download Adobe Flash when prompted. Okay, it's kind of wild. On Facebook, right after I finish the live stream, I'll try to rewatch it just to get an idea of how I can improve it, count how many times I said the word interact with you all, read your comments and everything. But often it won't play for me, and sometimes it will prompt me to download Adobe Flash. Probably a bad idea to follow those prompts. Here we go. Dropped it in there. It's out of Reuters 2 days ago. Adobe Systems Incorporated warned on Monday that hackers are exploiting vulnerabilities in its Flash multimedia software platform in web browsers, and the company urged users to quickly patch their systems to prevent such attacks. Real importantly, don't download it. If it tries to get you to download Adobe Flash, don't do it. Happens to me all the time. The warning came as cybersecurity firm Kaspersky Lab Incorporated said a group it was tracking, Black Oasis, used the previously unknown weakness on October 10th to plant malicious software on computers before connecting them back to servers in Switzerland, Bulgaria, and the Netherlands. Kaspersky said this malware, known as FinSpy or FinFisher, is a commercial product typically sold to nation states and law enforcement agencies to conduct surveillance. Interesting. Kaspersky said its assessment of Black Oasis showed it is targeting Middle Eastern politicians and United Nations officials engaged in the region, opposition bloggers and activists, that might be me, and regional news correspondents with the latest version of FinSpy. Blah, blah, blah. Adobe said it had released a Flash security update to fix the problem, which affected Google's Chrome and Microsoft's Edge and Internet Explorer browsers, as well as desktop versions. Luckily, nobody uses Internet Explorer anymore, but just a heads up, be careful when you get prompted. Second headline today, getting into it. Smartphones are killing Americans, but nobody's counting, coming out of Bloomberg. Okay, the Bloombergers. You know, smartphones are killing Americans in more ways than one, but this video stresses the importance of not distracted driving, arguably more dangerous than drunk driving. And I know it's something that I struggle with. You know, I only adapted a smartphone into my life last year, less than a year ago, when I was out live streaming at Standing Rock. And I'm amazed at how addicted I am to the damn thing. It's designed to be addicting. It's designed to suck you in, right? So it's important to limit our smartphone consumption at all times, limit our screen time, and also don't use that thing while you're driving. Amid a historic spike in U.S. traffic fatalities, federal data on the danger of distracted driving is getting more severe. So check that out. That came out yesterday from Bloomberg. Moving on to our next headline. The USA Liberty Act coming out of the Free Thought Project yesterday. In the wake of the Vegas shooting, you know, they never waste a good staged false flag event. So what are they doing? As everybody's distracted by the Harvey Weinstein thing, legitimately concerned about the situations in Puerto Rico, California, the Vegas shooting itself, you know, the supposed nuclear war with North Korea. Waiting in the wings is the very inappropriately named USA Liberty Act, as the mainstream media provides relentless coverage of the Harvey Weinstein Hollywood sex scandal. There is one major piece of legislation it is ignoring, and if passed, it will have massive repercussions for all Americans. More than 40 organizations, including the ACLU and the Freedom of the Press Foundation, have joined together to condemn the USA Liberty Act, a trendy name for a dangerous bill that authorizes and creates additional loopholes for Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA. In a letter to the House Judiciary Committee, the coalition noted that one of the most obvious problems with the USA Liberty Act is that it fails to address concerns with the backdoor search loophole, which allows the government to conduct warrantless searches for the information of individuals who are not targets, including U.S. citizens and U.S. citizens and residents. Okay, so everybody's talking about Harvey Weinstein and all that nonsense. Yeah. Speaking of the Vegas shooting, that guy Jesus Ortiz, the security guard, the supposed security guard who unusually started working at the MGM Mandalay Bay Casino shortly before the Vegas shooting took place, has done an interview with Ellen DeGeneres, of all people. A pretty interesting interview, but strangely, it's been getting pulled off the internet left and right. I learned a few things from watching it. This guy, Elite Enslaved US, put it up. Again, I think this interview occurred just a few days ago, but it has been scrubbed from the internet largely. So there's a copy of it. Really a poorly done live stream of it off his smartphone, but whatever. You take what you can get when stories are getting scrubbed. Interestingly, in that interview, Jesus Ortiz says that the fire escape door on that floor was bolted shut. He was hearing sounds like somebody drilling, maybe barricading the room or something. I don't know. The whole situation stinks. The story keeps changing. There's no valid reason why it took law enforcement 72 or 78 minutes, depending who you're asking, to get to the floor or to get into the room when this guy had shot, or whoever was shooting had shot thousands of rounds at a crowd of people at the Harvest Festival in the shadows of a giant pyramid and obelisk, right? Stranger than fiction there. Moving on to the situation in Puerto Rico briefly. Our hearts still go out to the people of Puerto Rico. I had a great conversation at a campfire a few nights ago with a woman who was born in Puerto Rico, moved to Manhattan, and then came out to Jackson Hole to get away from the city because it's just so crazy in the cities. But she's still got family in Puerto Rico. They don't have power, they don't have food, they don't have water. Her sister's in the military, so she's got some training in like organizing and dealing with disasters and crises. So she's kind of becoming a community leader there in their small town in a rural part of Puerto Rico. But the point is, Puerto Rico is still a huge deal. Jackson Hole Daily not touching on it all today, not even talking about the fires in California as they rage. But some outlets are, excuse me, got a frog in my throat today. The Associated Press reporting raw sewage contaminating waters in Puerto Rico after Maria. People drinking raw sewage there. Coming out of CNBC, Trump says the military should not have to help with food and water distribution in Puerto Rico. Okay, whatever you say, Trumpo. Crazy bastard, the divider in chief. Jason Eisenhart, good morning to you. Thank you so much for sharing those links. Thank you for everybody that shares stories and things with me. I'm going to get into some of that. Got some really interesting new videos from California to share with you too. Democracy Now!, that's controlled opposition, but they got a hell of a headline here that came out today as Puerto Rico faces a $95 billion cleanup. An expose reveals the vulture firms who own its existing $74 billion debt. So Puerto Rico was $74 billion in debt. Now it looks like they're going to be $170 billion in debt. Game over. What's happening there? Well, the Washington Post reporting today, shrinking. Puerto Rico faces a demographic disaster. No surprise there. A lot of Puerto Ricans are moving, right? If you live in a country that's already impoverished, that already has a struggling economy, and the power goes out for extended periods of time, the roads are washed out, there's no water, there's no food, there's no way to earn income, because it's a tourism and agriculture-based economy there for the most part. I imagine there aren't too many tourists heading to Puerto Rico right now. So all these people are forced to leave their homes in Puerto Rico. Going to have a huge influx of people. At the same time, that we're supposedly cracking down on illegal immigration. Puerto Ricans are Americans. So if the powers that be want a continual stream of desperate people willing to work for low wages, they found it in the Puerto Rico hurricane. Of course, we live in the era of weather warfare. Can't stress that enough. The first U.S. military experiment designed to manipulate a hurricane took place all the way back in 1947. Project Cirrus, right? Cloud seeding was developed in 1946. 1 year later, they tried steering a hurricane. And then, obviously, there was also Project Storm Fury from 1960-something until 1983, where they were manipulating storms off the coast of the U.S. and in the Philippines for 2 decades. Pretty sure they got it figured out by now. Pretty sure. Got a few books about it, but we're going to keep rolling along. People talking about Puerto Rico. Daniel Reichert making a good point. Every country is severely leveraged, right? Yeah, isn't that funny? They always talk about how, Puerto Rico's in debt. We can't help Puerto Rico because they're in debt. How deep in debt is the United States government? What is it, 15 trillion? Is that right? Is that where we're at? And who's it owed to? Who's the money owed to? The central banksters, okay? The real people that control the world aren't the ones that get elected. It's the people that pay for their campaign finances. It's the people that got all the money. As the Wu-Tang Clan infamously rapped, cash rules everything around me. On Puerto Rico, Shaban Blachek chiming in. Rich real estate, you're absolutely right there with Puerto Rico. You know, Puerto Rico is an international tax haven, and just like we're seeing with the vulture capitalists in Houston offering people 40 cents on the dollar for their homes and land that has been destroyed by the geoengineered hurricanes down there. In Puerto Rico, a lot of these people probably aren't going to get paid a dime for their land because they're just up and leaving because they're starving to death if they stay there, right? Wake up news, we're at $20 trillion in debt. Thanks. It's hard to keep it. Hard to keep track of it because it goes up so fast, right? So I feel really bad for the people of Puerto Rico. It really sucks. Big deal there. We got 250 viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Boom, we're moving on. I just put out a heck of a video today, how to start catastrophic wildfires with your microwave. We all know what happens if you put a piece of aluminum foil in a microwave compared to what happens if you put whatever, oatmeal in the microwave, right? Or I did an experiment yesterday where I put some grass, some pine boughs, and some aspen boughs, aspen, little branch, little twig of aspen with some leaves on it. What happens when you put, vegetable matter in a microwave? It doesn't burst into flames. It doesn't spark up like crazy. But if you put a bunch of metal in the microwave, look out, It's a good way to pass the time if you're a bored kid growing up in small town Minnesota, but really not very safe, not good for the microwave. But the point is, out there in California, they're blaming these hurricane force winds, blaming PG&E for negligence, right? That, there were these winds that knocked down power lines. Next thing you know, there's 22 fires across all of Northern California. The only problem with that is generally if a power line goes down or, there are fuses, right? There are measures within the system that will kill the power to those lines when there's a catastrophic event, like a tree falling on a power line, right? So the notion that 22 fires across 8 counties in Northern California all started between 9:45 p.m. on October 8th and 3:30 a.m. on October 9th due to winds is absurd. Especially when you look at this video, one of my friends, sorry, I'm blanking on your name at the moment right now, bro, but I really appreciate it. Share with me that is direct from the Henry 1 helicopter of the Sonoma County Sheriff, posted on October 10th, a little more than a week ago, by the Press Democrat, the newspaper in Santa Rosa. And this is from pre-dawn on the morning of October 9th. And there are a few things you can notice watching this video posted, given by the Sheriff's Department to the Press Democrat, the Santa Rosa paper. Number one, it's not very windy. right? People, they're saying, 80-mile-an-hour winds, hurricane force winds. But looking at this footage, the smoke is almost going straight up. It's veering off a little bit. Anybody that's, started a campfire, had a campfire, knows that if it was 80-mile-an-hour winds, that smoke is going sideways. Whereas in this video posted from the sheriff's office from the night of October 9th, according to the Press Democrat, the smoke's going up, just veering off a little bit, like you'd see with maybe a 5 to 10-mile-an-hour wind. And also, you'll notice that these fires aren't really coming out of the forest. There isn't like a huge wall of flame moving down the hills into Santa Rosa. No, it's not like that at all. It looks like the houses started on fire. A lot of people have documented this, that it seems like houses are burning from the inside out. There's all this footage of cars that are completely torched to the extent where the wheels are melted and the molten metal has oozed down the pavement and formed these little puddles of metal, right? Doesn't make sense. If it's an aluminum alloy wheel, that stuff starts to melt at 1,221 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? So in order to melt a wheel completely and have it be so warm that it's going to ooze down the pavement, we're talking about an extremely, extremely, extremely hot fire. And then strangely, in the vicinity of these cars, you'll see trees that still have leaves on them. You'll see pine trees that still have pine needles on them. And the ignition point for forest materials, there's all this research out there. I looked into it. Basically, the ignition point for leaves, whether wet or dry, is between 600 and 880 degrees Fahrenheit. Of course, the burning point of paper, Fahrenheit 451. Ray Bradbury, rest in peace. So, yeah. Danny Rowe chiming in the event of a power line failure, the transformer will blow. There's also a fuse in the line that will pop. It's a double failsafe, right? Thank you, Danny, for your brilliant comment there. It doesn't make any sense that 22 fires would start simultaneously and PG&E takes the hit on it. Okay, if you play the stock market, PG&E's stock has tanked. It was down about 16% recently. If you want to make some easy money, maybe invest in PG&E when it bottoms out. I don't know, because it's an electric utility, people are kind of forced to use it. Right? Their stock's going to go back up, just like we're seeing with Equifax. But there's that Santa Rosa fire. Again, here's the video I put together yesterday. Spent several hours working on it last night, trying to make it real sweet for y'all. How to start a catastrophic California wildfire with your microwave. And speaking of directed energy weapons, microwave weapons coming out yesterday from the Bloomberg Politics section. The U.S. Air Force Space Chief sees the final frontier as a battleground. Space is a war-fighting domain, a four-star general says. U.S. personnel make 400,000 observations a day tracking debris in space. Space, once seen as the benign final frontier, has evolved into a crowded potential battleground that the U.S. must defend as conflicts extend beyond Earth, according to the Air Force's top military space official. Okay, I'm gonna find something real quick for you here. It's the NMOD Treaty of the UN from 1978. I don't know if they're aware of this. I don't know if they're really clued in, but space-based weaponry, space warfare has been banned for 40 years by the NMOD Treaty of the UN. Of course, the UN also banned torture, but that doesn't stop the U.S. military from using enhanced interrogation techniques like waterboarding. So, I don't know. Interestingly, the NMOD Treaty of the UN also banned weather warfare. Okay, but it doesn't, it's funny, there's a little loophole in there. It doesn't ban using the weather as a weapon against your own people or in international waters. So, your guess is as good as mine, but the main point here is that the whole situation surrounding the wildfires in California stinks. I feel really bad for the thousands of people who lost their homes and businesses, and I think it's up to 50 now, it might be 45 people who lost their lives in this fire. And still hundreds of people missing. And what's crazy is a lot of these houses, these fires started middle of the night, and a lot of people didn't evacuate. And a lot of these houses were completely incinerated to the point where it's down to the foundation, to the point where there's only a couple inches of ash and debris remaining. So it's very well likely that a lot of these people were cremated, right? The missing people, I don't know. Looking at how these fires started, my guess would be a lot of people have not been declared officially dead yet because there's nothing left of them. So that's sad. Really upsetting. That's why we're out here keeping the truth. Stephen D. Dooley asking me, do I have a tinfoil under my hat? No, man. Although I might want to, since we live in the era of directed energy weapons. And in addition to being used to potentially start forest fires, there's all this footage online now. CNN bragging about how the Air Force is able to shoot down a drone with a laser off a ship. But in addition to the potential to use microwaves to, start a forest fire, take down a drone, you can also use it to make people sick, give people insomnia, make it so they're confused all the time. And if you think I'm crazy, you think that, you're wearing a tinfoil hat because you're educated, maybe you just haven't read the same books as me. And I would strongly recommend there, Stephen D. Dooley, that if you really want to sound smart on the internet, you might want to check out The Body Electric, written by Robert O. Becker, MD, back in 1985. Pioneering researcher in the field of electromedicine, he warned us about all this shit 32 years ago. So, Stephen, a tinfoil hat might actually help in this situation to protect us a little bit, protect our brains a little bit from all this EMF. But unfortunately, it's pretty hard to get your hands on tinfoil these days because it's all actually aluminum foil. What's aluminum do? Well, if you breathe it in, it gets into your lungs, gets into your bloodstream. If it's the nano aluminum they're spraying out of airplanes, it's small enough that it'll cross the blood-brain barrier. And once it's in your brain, it'll give you Alzheimer's disease or autism or dementia or just make you feel kind of fuzzy and dumb. So remember that if you can, Stephen D. Dooley. Appreciate you. Moving on. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got all this fun, great comments. Don't put tinfoil in microwaves, Max. Cherry, don't worry, I didn't do that. I actually found that video on somebody else's YouTube channel. I just nuked, for my little experiment, I know what happens when you put tinfoil in the microwave. I just nuked some grass and some pine boughs and so on and so forth. So we're through our main headlines. Lewis Wesley asking, just got in, why shouldn't I download it? Well, there have been reports straight from Kaspersky, straight from Adobe, that the Black Oasis Group is using their software to give people a malware that tracks their keystrokes and so forth. Interestingly, the malware that is being covertly distributed with Adobe Flash downloads is designed for governments. So I don't know. Maybe it's the government. It's hard to say. The computer is a very complicated machine. Moving along, we're getting into the local news here, taking a look at the Jackson Hole Daily. We have 318 viewers. I love y'all. If you don't know, if you're tuning in for the first time, this newspaper services the wealthiest county per capita in North America, where all the billionaires come to play and drink their days away on the decks of their multi-million-dollar log cabins, watching the world burn as they try to save a couple percent by going for tax haven status. Stay classy, billionaires. Way to fight the good fight, you greedy, short-sighted, speculative bastards. Moving along. Nothing, interestingly, nothing on the front page could even be called news. Wyoming gets a D on the Outdoor Recreational Economy Report Card. That's fine. You don't want to come to Wyoming anyway. This place sucks. Cannabis legalization just hasn't been that big a deal up in British Columbia. Yeah, so that's good. Remember, marijuana cures cancer. Good for a lot of things. I don't smoke it every day. It's like any drug. You can abuse it, right? If you wake and bake every day, you're not operating at your highest potential, nor are you getting all of the beneficial medical properties of the devil's lettuce. You might want to eat that stuff. You know, mix it up into some coconut oil in the crock pot, smear it all over your skin, put it in a smoothie, make yourself some brownies, whatever. But the key thing here is smoking shit generally ain't that good for you, regardless of what it is. In the opinion section, you know, they could be arguing about directed energy weapons being used to destroy California, but instead they're fighting over a gold mine in Alaska. Classic political cartoon. You know, I don't even know what this is all about. They love bashing on Trump. I'm no Trump supporter, but it's like Trump taking away candy from kids on Halloween. I'm pretty sure if kids try to trick-or-treat at the White House front door, they get shot by the Secret Service. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But, you know, they love painting Trump like the ultimate villain. I don't know if the guy's legit or not. You know, a lot of people bought into Trump's promises, but it seems like he has not been able to deliver even if he wanted to. Moving on to regional news. The Standing Rock Sioux Tribe is receiving 30 to 40 bison from the Theodore Roosevelt National Park. So that's cool. Wouldn't it be great if we had herds of bison running wild coast to coast like it used to be? I think so. But it's cool to see the native tribes getting their buffalo herds in order. And then in Minnesota, my homeland, you know, I'm from Minnesota, live in Wyoming now. Pretty good news there. A Minnesota judge has taken the unusual step of allowing protesters to use a necessity defense, enabling them to present evidence that the threat of climate change from Canadian tar sands crude oil is so imminent that they were justified in trying to shut down 2 Enbridge Energy oil pipelines last year. Okay, this didn't make it the mainstream at all. But this spring, I was actually out in Seattle with Tim Schwartz. We were shutting down a Chase Bank branch with a group of native tribes, live streamed it here at Wake Up News. And I met a man who was part of this same organization. And what they did is they actually turned off the pipelines, right? They busted the padlocks on these emergency shutoff switches, and they shut off all these pipelines simultaneously along the northern border of the U.S. Again, it didn't really make the mainstream media, but that's what they did. Heck of a protest. Of course, naturally, they got the book thrown at them. These people were facing serious jail terms for this. Cool to see this judge in Minnesota allowing the protesters to use a necessity defense to justify their actions against this pipeline company. Of course, just greenhouse gases from carbon is not going to solve our climate change problems because we live in the era of weather warfare, weather modification, and geoengineering as well, right? So anytime you read about climate change, if they're not talking about the ongoing covert geoengineering programs simultaneously, or even just openly admitted weather modification programs being conducted by literally hundreds of various government entities and corporations all over the world, they're not really doing justice to the climate issue. Jacob Sylvester asking, what was the book again? The Body Electric by Robert O. Becker, M.D. Check it out. Zach, if you're there, can you drop a link in? I know you love dropping a link. We got a free copy of it for you here at Wake Up News. Crazy, stranger than fiction. Barrasso, the local Republican senator here, is being challenged by billionaire, born-again Christian Foster Friess, in addition to Blackwater Security CEO Eric Prince. So it's going to be a heck of an election here. I'm going to make some hay with that because Blackwater is a private mercenary army, which is super fucked up. And Foster Friess is worth about $7 billion, and him and I have had beef before, about 8 years ago. So it's going to be a wild ride. We have no shortage of material for you here at Wake Up Wyoming. The Arctic drilling plan is a payout to big oil, say the Democrats. Of course, they're not really doing much to stop it, but I want to read a little of this just to put it into perspective. Democrats and environmental groups on Tuesday denounced a Republican plan to allow oil and gas drilling in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, saying it would defile a crown jewel of U.S. wilderness to promote oil exports to China and other nations. Same sort of thing going on in North Dakota with all the fracking and the tar sands up in Canada. Sad to see. Senator Edward Markey, a Democrat from Massachusetts, called the plan a massive corporate handout to big oil that amounts to a polar payout to finance tax cuts for the super rich. The administration and congressional Republicans are pushing the drilling plan as a way to help pay for proposed tax cuts promised by President Trump. The drilling plan is included in the GOP budget proposal for the current fiscal year and is expected to generate an estimated, wait for it, $1 billion over 10 years. So why am I making such a big deal? $1 billion over 10 years is nothing. It's chump change. And to prove it, all you got to do is look at the ongoing QE Infinity program, whereby the Federal Reserve Bank prints approximately $3 billion, 3 times as much. How often? Every day. Every day, to prop up the stock market and fund deficit spending by the U.S. government. Of course, the ECB, the European Central Bank, does the same shit. $3 billion a day to keep the year, $3 billion worth of euros per day to keep their currency afloat, to keep their rich continually getting richer, their bankrupt governments continually operating, buying more porno scanners for the airports and riot gear for the police, on and on and on. But it's important to note, when we're talking about energy, we don't need oil. Tesla tech developed over 100 years ago. It's too bad that we're ruled by a bunch of greedy bastards that hide the truth. So that's why we're here raising awareness. We got 260 viewers. I love y'all. Thank you so much. Moving along. We got great comments. Thank you, Brian Peterson. Got up to 345. That's a new record. Somebody must be helping me out here today. And I appreciate that. Moving along, the interim care deal made. What's this mean? Well, you know, Trump's been going after Obamacare, a.k.a. the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, saying he's going to defund programs designed to provide assistance to low and middle income people that are forced to buy insurance through the government's new program, right? Either buy insurance or pay a big penalty. The penalties go up every year. Everybody's roped into the system. And now this interim care deal has been made. You know, the healthcare thing, another distraction. It's important to know, you know, they've spent years. When was Obamacare first proposed? Like 2009? And now it's 8 years later, and it's still an issue. They still can't sort out healthcare in America. Here's a solution, guys. I got it. It's real simple. It's real simple. All you got to do is make it illegal for hospitals and healthcare providers to gouge people on the prices. If they just made it so you had to list your prices up front, just like they do at the grocery store, just like they do at the car dealership, just like they do at the electronics shop, just like they do at the restaurants, just like every other business in existence on planet Earth, you got to tell people how much it costs before you do it to them. Well, then people would go to the hospitals that cost less. There'd be a little thing called competition, keeping the system in check to some extent. And people would be like, you know, there'd be national outrage at the prices charged because it'd be so blatantly upfront and in your face. Of course, under HIPAA laws, you know, they're not allowed to talk about that stuff for patient confidentiality shit. But yeah, if the government was serious about getting health care in line in the United States, they don't need to do all this shit. They don't need to get their hands in it. They don't need to fine people for not taking part in their corrupt system. All they'd have to do is pass laws to rein in the healthcare providers and the insurance companies instead of putting it on the shoulders of the American people. So, Lottie frickin' da. Federal judge blocks the latest travel ban. Of course, they blame Trump for this travel ban. It's a federal judge in Hawaii. At issue was a ban announced in September and set to go into effect today on travelers from Chad, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen, along with some Venezuelan government officials and their families. Blah, blah, blah. The judge's ruling applies only to the 6 Muslim-majority countries on the list. It does not affect the restrictions against North Korea or Venezuela because the state of Hawaii did not ask for that. Okay, so Venezuelans and North Koreans still can't come into the U.S., but the key thing here, they don't mention this anymore. You know, it's funny, when they were first talking about this travel ban in the mainstream media, they mentioned briefly in the articles that it also applied to the 65 million refugees all over the world. Probably more than that now, right? Arguably, there's 3 million refugees in the making in Puerto Rico right now, right? So 69 million refugees. But key thing here, you know, they limit the number of refugees that are allowed to come into the U.S. I think it's capped at about 50,000 annually. So they don't mention that. Moving on to the opioid crisis. Here's kind of a fun headline. The pilot in the deadliest hot air balloon crash in U.S. history was probably impaired by Valium, an opioid and allergy medicine, when he ignored weather warnings and flew the balloon into a power line, investigators said Tuesday. Besides Valium and oxycodone, there was enough of the over-the-counter antihistamine Benadryl in Alfred's Skip Nichols' system to mimic the apparent effect of a blood alcohol level of a drunken driver. Blah, blah, blah. The crash in July of 2016 near Austin, Texas, killed all 16 people aboard Alfred Skip Nichols' hot air balloon. And so, yeah, opioids kill in more ways than one. Rep. Tom Marino, President Trump's nominee to be the nation's drug czar, Tom Marino, remember that name, has withdrawn from consideration following reports that he played a key role in weakening the federal government's authority to stop companies from distributing opioids. He didn't want to have even the perception of a conflict of interest with drug companies or, frankly, insurance companies, Trump told Fox News Radio in an interview Tuesday, shortly after he broke the news on Tuesday. The announcement followed reports by the Washington Post and CBS News that detailed the Pennsylvania lawmakers' involvement in crafting a 2016 law signed by former President Barack Obama that weakened the DEA's authority to curb opioid distribution. Okay, so naturally it stands to reason in the U.S., you know, who's Trump going to recruit to be the nationwide drug czar to keep us? I don't even know why they call him the drug czar. That's crazy. But who is he going to recruit to be the head of, you know, keeping an eye on all the pharmaceutical drugs? Well, it's going to be the guy that crafted the legislation to weaken them previously. I just dropped in a recent 60 Minutes episode of all things. 60 Minutes, still more relevant and pertinent than ever before today. Ex-DEA agent, opioid crisis fueled by drug industry and Congress. Whistleblower Joe Ranazizi says drug distributors pumped opioids into U.S. communities knowing that people were dying, and says industry lobbyists and Congress derailed the DEA's efforts to stop it. Okay, so 60 Minutes, thank you for covering this important issue. It kind of sucks when your friends die from opioids. I know firsthand. You know, it's a real bummer. And even if they don't die, you know, generally people are not operating at their highest potential. They're not resonating at the highest frequency if they're all doped up on opioids, right? Why is there so much opium in this country? Well, it's because Uncle Sam is the world's largest drug dealer, in addition to being the world's largest arms dealer. That's why we really invaded Afghanistan back in 2001, because the Taliban were our homeboys fighting against the Russians. Osama bin Laden, a.k.a. Tim Osman, CIA asset, freedom fighter for the Afghan people against the horrible Russian scourge, who was affecting our ability to control 90% of the global opium trade. Most of the opium in the world had grown in Afghanistan for a very long time, right? The U.S., believe it or not, I've got these old National Geographics around, and I've got an ad from a 1960s era National Geographic where Brown and Root, a.k.a. Halliburton nowadays, is tooting their own horn about how great it is that they're building all these highways and irrigation canals in Afghanistan. Well, what do they grow in Afghanistan? Smack. 2000, the Taliban revolted against their pimp, the biggest drug pusher, the biggest weapons dealer in the world, our dear old Uncle Sam, and made it illegal to grow opium. They burned the fields. Afghanistan went from producing 90% of the world's opium to 10% in 1 year. No surprise, Uncle Sam invaded. Of course, we also want that because it's geopolitically important. You could build some real nice pipelines through there. Just ask Dickface Cheney. And they got a whole shitload of rare earth metals there to be mined, too. So the mineral rights to Afghanistan are huge, too. But long story short, back to the opioid crisis. It's a tragedy. 60+ thousand Americans dying annually due to opioids. Please don't get hooked on painkillers. You know, we are better than that. I believe in you. You got this. So thank you all for tuning in. Moving on to Syria. U.S.-backed Syrian forces liberate ISIS's capital city. I don't even know where to begin with this. First off, we funded, trained, and supported ISIS. Fact. Check out globalresearch.ca for more info. This is a land grab. I'm going to read you a little here. You know, ISIS is a proxy enemy in U.S. attempts to destabilize Syria. The civil war in Syria that we've heard so much about for a long time now was actually a foreign invasion, mercenary army, trained, supported, funded by NATO, Uncle Sam and his homeboys in Europe. The Russians are there in Syria at the bequest of President Bashar al-Assad to help them kick Uncle Sam and his boys out of the country. But U.S.-backed Syrian forces celebrated in the devastated streets of Raqqa on Tuesday after gaining control of the northern city that once was the heart of the so-called capital of the Islamic State's self-styled caliphate, dealing a major defeat to the extremist group that has seen its territory shrink ever smaller since summer. It took thousands of bombs dropped by the U.S.-led coalition and more than 4 months of grueling house-to-house battles for the Syrian Democratic Forces, that's the SDF. They're not really Syrian. They're not really democratic. It's a mercenary army. The Syrian people have their own army, right, that supports the government of Syria, to recapture Raqqa, marking a new chapter in the fight against the group whose once vast territory has been reduced to a handful of towns in Syria and Iraq. So, long story short, the U.S., the Western powers are losing in Syria. The Russians, the Chinese, and the Syrian people, the real Syrian people, have effectively won that war. But, of course, the mainstream media is going to spin it like a victory. Interestingly, how do you liberate a city? It took thousands of bombs dropped by the U.S.-led coalition to liberate Raqqa. So basically, they blew the whole city up, called it a win. I don't know. Stranger than fiction, but wouldn't it be nice if we just got out of Syria? Maybe they could take all that money they're wasting on trying to grab a few strategic parts of Syria so they have some bartering chips when this war is finally fully done. It would be nice if instead of doing that, they just brought all the boys home, brought all the money home, took those Humvees back from ISIS and the SDF, took all the tools and weapons and everything back, maybe melt them down, swords into plowshare style, and get serious about fixing Puerto Rico. I don't know. Just makes too much sense, I guess. Much more pressing matters halfway around the world, dropping thousands and thousands of bombs on a city in a country we have no business being, than helping American citizens, 3.4 million American citizens on the island of Puerto Rico who are struggling just to stay alive. Onward to business news. Once again, no surprise there, in the midst of all this catastrophic upheaval, the Dow and S&P 500 gained new heights on Healthcare. Interestingly, healthcare, 19% of GDP in the U.S., where the worldwide average is closer to 8% of GDP. You know, it keeps our economy, making everybody really sick and then ripping them off on their attempts to try to get better again. You know, here, have some more pills, ripping them off on their attempts to get healthy again. Really boost the economy without actually increasing consumption of things that actually, you know, benefit people. So it's that. But we could go on and on. This is, you know, in the wake of Trumpo and the boys saying, yeah, okay, we'll keep funding Obamacare for the poor and middle class. Health insurers, hospitals, and other healthcare companies rose as two leading lawmakers reached a deal on a plan backed by the White House that would extend federal payments to health insurers. President Trump had blocked the payments last week, but then he changed his mind. Biogen gained 2.6%, and Anthem added 1.9%. Lottie frickin' da. In other financial news, coming out of Wolf Street, the Pentagon is worried that hackers will cause a stock market crash. Okay? The Pentagon, but no one's worried about stocks getting manipulated higher and higher continuously. It's funny. The all-out government effort to prevent a major decline of the stock market or of individual stocks via manipulation, aka hacking, and now even the Pentagon is looking into it. What's funny is that everyone cheers when manipulation, hacking, and other shenanigans cause the market or individual stocks to soar. It's just declines they're worried about at these precarious record levels. Manipulating stocks higher is a time-honored game that routinely receives kudos from all around. The Fed, the Federal Reserve, private profit-driven bank, printed nearly $4 trillion and cut rates to zero for 8 years, no matter what the damage to the real economy, for the sole purpose of manipulating up asset prices, including stock prices. Wealth effect, Ben Bernanke called it, Helicopter Ben. Corporate executives and analysts exaggerate future earnings only to deflate them at the last minute because stock prices are forward-looking, and fake future earnings is all that matters, even if reality currently sucks. And on, whatever it takes to push stock prices up by hook or crook is cool. These central bankers are our heroes. But when some lonely dude might hack into high-speed trading systems or spook the trading algorithms, quant fund managers and high-speed traders and throw, man, this guy is real wordy, blah, blah, blah. The Pentagon feels empowered to step in if something happens that might actually cause prices to fall. So pretty good commentary there. On the cryptocurrency front, Russia is issuing a crypto ruble. Okay? Boom. This big news. Of course, it's not going to be your typical Bitcoin situation. Russian President Putin has officially stated that Russia will issue its own crypto ruble at a closed-door meeting in Moscow, according to local news sources. The news broke through Minister of Communications Nikolai Nikiforov. According to the official, the state-issued cryptocurrency cannot be mined and will be issued and controlled and maintained only by the authorities. The crypto rubles can be exchanged for regular rubles at any time, though if the holder is unable to explain where the crypto rubles came from, a 13% tax will be levied. The same tax will be applied to any earned difference between the price of the purchase of the token and the price of the sale, Nikiforov said. So Russia getting proactive with cryptocurrencies there. Of course, it's a centrally controlled cryptocurrency, and they figured out how to tax it. Not long ago here on Wake Up Wyoming, we reported that the IRS has been tracking people's Bitcoin purchases since 2015. So any gains you've made in the crypto markets since then probably going to get taxed by Uncle Sam and the boys at some point. Bloomberg View chiming in yesterday on the crypto markets issue. Authoritarian cryptocurrencies are coming. Russia and China see a new way to completely control their financial systems, with Russia and China both embracing the idea of sovereign cryptocurrencies, the crypto ruble, the crypto yuan. It's time to ask a simple question. Why is the technology threatening to decentralize money so attractive to highly centralized authoritarian regimes? Well, naturally, if you can't beat them, you join them, right? We're going to have a crypto dollar before too long. Just you wait and see. Of course, Uncle Sam likes to take his time. And, you know, the empire has got, it's pretty slow moving. It's kind of a dinosaur, like my little dinos back there, right? What else do we got? Goldman Sachs says gold is better than Bitcoin. Precious metals are neither a historic accident nor a relic. Bitcoin has surged more than fivefold in 2017, and gold's up 12%. That's right. If you bought Bitcoins New Year's Day for about $1,000, now they're worth over $5,000. But at the same time, who knows what's going to happen with them? If you want to play that game, if you want to speculate in the crypto markets, you better keep a real close eye on it. Me personally, I don't have time for that shit, even if I do stand to benefit greatly by reducing myself to a speculative profit monger. I would prefer to be a normal human working for my money instead, which is why I make this show. And I'm so grateful to have 186 viewers. Thank you so much. I'm going to get into my spiel about how you can help me out with this later. Moving on, Business Insider reporting on October 15th. I think they got a typo in here. Maybe Business Insider doesn't quite understand cryptocurrencies because it doesn't really make sense. But they say the electricity required for a single Bitcoin trade could power a house for a whole month. I don't think that's right. I think they mean the electricity required to mine a single Bitcoin would be my guess. But coming out of Business Insider London, Bitcoin transactions use so much energy that the electricity used for a single trade could power a home for almost a month, according to a paper from Dutch bank ING. Bitcoin trades use a lot of electricity as a means to make verifying trades expensive, therefore making fraudulent transactions costly and deterring those who seek to misuse the currency. By making sure that verifying transactions is a costly business, the integrity of the network can be preserved as long as benevolent nodes control a majority of computing power, wrote ING senior economist Teunis Brozens. Okay, maybe they're right. Maybe it does take that amount of electricity because the way these blockchain cryptocurrencies work is everybody's got the ledger, you know, every computer in the network, everybody who's playing with Bitcoins, everybody who's investing in Bitcoins has got the entire ledger of transactions stored on their computer. So that's a lot of uploads, a lot of downloads. And, you know, the benevolent nodes, meaning within that network of blockchain connected computers, you know, all the ledgers have to add up. They have to all be identical. So if anybody's ledger is off, they know that there was a fraudulent transaction. They know that ledger is invalid and it can be neutralized, right? So maybe, but the long story short is that the amount of kilowatt hours devoted to cryptocurrencies is pretty insane. And yeah, that's all. For example, the estimated kilowatt hours used per transaction of a Bitcoin is 200, whereas an Ethereum transaction, 37. So 5 times more electricity used for a Bitcoin transaction. Whereas if you swipe your Visa card at the Quickie Mart, it takes 0.01 kilowatt hours per transaction. Of course, this week, Bitcoin saw its value increase by almost $1,500 per coin, with a rally that coincides with renewed interest in the currency from investment banks. The Wall Street Journal last week reported that Goldman Sachs was looking at setting up a Bitcoin trading operation, and Morgan Stanley CEO James Gorman had recently said that the cryptocurrency was certainly more than just a fad. So if this headline's true, if it really takes 200 kilowatt hours for a Bitcoin transaction, the utility companies are laughing, right? The coal industry, the natural gas industry, solar, wind, hydro, they're laughing if we have replaced our money with this system. You know, if we're trying to, you know, the solution is Bitcoin. Some people say it's going to save us. But I'm pretty sure the system's going to keep jumping on cryptos. It's going to be a miracle, a literal miracle if cryptocurrencies save us from the banking cartel. Be cool if it did, but I don't know. It seems like the banking cartel is pretty good with money and currencies and financial shit. Probably going to figure out a way to take control of that sort of thing. But if it's really that energy intensive to process Bitcoin transactions, sad. It's an environmental and economic catastrophe. Moving along to North Korea. Again, I'm not worried about getting nuked by North Korea. I hope you're not either. But South China Morning Post saying that crippled by sanctions, North Korea may not last a year, says a defector. Again, they're quoting one person here for a headline. Desperate need to force diplomatic opening with U.S. driving North Korea's provocative behavior, defector Ri Jong-ho says. Excuse me. Got the chemtrail club today. It's brutal. And coming out of Zero Hedge on North Korea yesterday, the U.S. has deployed a special forces decapitation team to North Korea. Today, the South Korean and U.S. Navies kicked off massive combined drills off the coast of the Korean Peninsula amid heightened tensions of training. A training exercise which North Korea has warned may prompt another ballistic missile launch, potentially to coincide with the launch of the Chinese 19th Party Congress on October 18th. The two allies plan to continue the maritime counter special operations exercise through Friday in the East Sea and the Yellow Sea. So don't worry, America, your tax dollars are going to keep all these aircraft carriers rolling along over there off the Korean Peninsula instead of helping the Puerto Rican people out. There's a picture here of a U.S. aircraft carrier that's got like 30 fucking fighter jets on the deck, and they're working real hard over there to keep you safe from dastardly Kim Jong-un. So don't even trip, bro. Uncle Sam's got your back. Stranger than fiction. Again, if you're not familiar with what's going on regionally there's the Rohingya Muslim refugee crisis we're hearing more and more about. But in reality, the Rohingya Muslims started that fight in Myanmar, a.k.a. Bangladesh. And then they got booted out of there. There's, I don't know, I could get into it on and on. But basically, the whole Rohingya Muslim refugee crisis we hear so much about appears to be a Western attempt to destabilize Chinese attempts to push forward with their Belt in the Road initiative to basically do some huge economic developments in their region. Okay, and then the North Korea thing, similar. We got all these aircraft carriers and whatnot over there to protect us from Kim Jong-un, but conveniently they're right up China's ass too. So I don't know. It's all a blur. Daily Beast reporting that despite campaign promises, Trump's aid to Saudi Arabia skyrocketing. No big surprise there. Some people say that Trump is the big hero, but I ain't seeing it. The future of surveillance is hidden in airport ads coming from Engadget. Public anonymity is quickly becoming a thing of the past. Coming soon to a Dubai airport is an artsy, colorful video security and customs tunnel that scans your face, adds you to a database, indexes you with artificial intelligence, and decides if you're free to leave or not. By the end of the summer 2018, Dubai International Airport's Terminal 3 will have replaced its security clearance counter, so their version of the TSA, with a walkway tunnel filled with 80 face-scanning cameras disguised as a distracting, immersive video. Travelers' eyes will roam the enclosed tunnel and its virtual shimmering aquarium as they head to their gate, while their biometric data is seamlessly collected, compared, and stored somewhere under unknown terms and conditions. Blah, blah, blah. So that's pretty wild. The future of surveillance tech. At least they're not porno scanning them over there in Dubai, and they get to look at some pretty fake fish as they walk through the tunnel. So that'll be kind of cool. I don't think I'll ever go to Dubai, but whatever. And our last story for today, before we get into the scopes, coming out of The Verge, landscape architects are now designing for mass shootings. With mass shootings on the rise, an unexpected group of professionals is trying to make it easier for people to avoid getting killed in the melee. Landscape architects. These are the people who place just so many oversized planners on a pedestrian thoroughfare to prevent an attack by car bomb from hitting a crowd or the buildings behind the barricades. And one of their first design challenges is the new Sandy Hook Elementary School, built to replace the site of the infamous 2012 massacre. Of course, anybody who was paying attention back in 2012 knows the Sandy Hook shooting's got a lot of holes in it. Maybe nobody even died. We don't really know because they bulldozed the school shortly after it all went down. So that was weird. But a lot of things don't add up. You know, a lot of people were exposed as crisis actors in that situation. So, yeah. David Levy chiming in, back to cryptocurrencies. In the next 3 years, cryptos will be the transition. Banks are already preparing. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, man. It's all a blur to me with the cryptos. Definitely worth keeping an eye on. Still buy gold and silver. I agree, David. Those things are going to hold their value no matter what. Thomas Foco chiming in, grow your own food and go local with farmers markets. Absolutely. You know, we can sit on the computer all day trying to figure out the world, but if we don't really take proactive steps in our own lives and in our own communities, we're fucked. So you can be the most informed person in the world, but if you don't put it into practice, it don't mean shit. So get out there, stay active, stay aware, stay optimistic, and on and on. Wake Up News, thanks for copying that in there. Wow, we got lots of comments in here. This is great. Somebody said, this is the best. Thank you, Randy Cornelius. I appreciate you. Daniel Reichert, you're out of here. Take care. There's so many comments. I can't read them all. And now, into the scopes. Let me know if you want your scope read. Again, if you want to support my work, you know, drop your sign in there if you want your scope read. I'll get into it. Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to show you here, actually, that ties it all together, for me at least, and I find really interesting, and that is in the local movie listings of the Jackson Hole Daily, the wealthiest, you know, the paper servicing the wealthiest county per capita. We have 2 movies coming out this weekend that are really rather timely and kind of shocking. Of course, everybody knows Geostorm's coming out, but the other one, Only the Brave, both starting Friday. And what's unusual about this, you know, you look at the movie listings, they always have, like, everybody's got their own logo, their own styling, their own design, their own fonts, their own graphics. But the advertising for these 2 movies in the paper, and I think that that's probably a national campaign because the movie theater here doesn't make their own ads for these, they're pretty much identical. And these movies both come out on Friday. You can see it's like very similar visual imagery. These guys are staring down a fire. This guy and this person are staring down a wall of water coming down the city street at them. The fonts are very similar. The entire layout of those ads is very similar. And, you know, Geostorm, that's a movie about the government playing God with the weather. Only the Brave is a story about the brave people fighting wildfires. Of course, I don't know, the wildfires out in California don't make no sense. And all these hurricanes hitting places like Harvey in Houston, Irma in Florida, and Maria, Irma, and various other hurricanes hitting the Caribbean. Hurricane Katia taking out central Mexico. Hurricane Nate taking out Central America. So it's weird. Tammy Fair, I'll chime in predictive programming. Yeah, I think you're right. But it's just, you know, it's like, I don't know, they could disguise it a little better. It's funny how both these movies come out on Friday. They got the same friggin' advertising, and they're both predictive programming. It's weird. You think they could hire, like, maybe not have the same graphic designer do both ads, right? I don't know. It's weird. Weird, weird world. I'm getting into the scopes for you now. I was saying, if you want to support my work, you know, these videos don't make themselves. Please go to my Patreon page and throw me a couple bucks a month. Big thanks to my 5 supporters: David Cocorico Sedano, Evan Simpson, Brian Peterson, Zachary Coons, and Irene the Lion Like Zion up there in BC, ponying up a whopping $288 a month. You know, it would be so cool if I could make a living off of this and do this for you every day and do it right. Hit the road, go to places like California and be on the ground, like physically showing you what's going on. That's my dream. That's what I'm shooting for. And for a couple bucks a month, you can make that a reality. So help me out. Hook me up. I promise I'll make it worth your while. We're into the scopes. We're into the scopes. Again, I'm not an astrologer, but I am, I read the paper. So the scopes are in there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Brian Peterson, since you're a supporter, I'm going to do you first, then you can get on with your busy day. Aries, coming at you. 4-star day for you, Brian. Someone close to you suddenly becomes unusually friendly and buoyant. Maybe I know who that is. You might be watchful of what comes down the path next. This person's feelings stem from authenticity. He or she feels more relaxed than normal. Conflict arises between you and a controlling associate. Your best bet is to ignore this person's behavior, Brian. Tonight, happy to call it a day. Go off and do your thing. Scorpio coming out for Jerry Wallace and Annie Pechnio. Sorry, Annie. How do you pronounce your name? Pechnio? Scorpio coming at you. 3-star day for both of you. You might want to take a back seat and watch what is happening, Jerry and Annie. The smart move might be to say less, avoid making judgments, and observe. A person you meet today could be very significant and lucky for you. The bond could have a secretive tone. Tonight, feel free to choose what you really want to do. Ralph Shelton looking for the Sagittarius. Luke, I just read Scorpio for you too, so you got that. Ralph Shelton, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you all for tuning in. 4-star day for you, Ralph. Your frivolous and fun personality comes out with a friend or a group of associates. Someone might attempt to rain on your parade, and will if you let him or her. So don't. Carry your own weather around with you, as what's that guy's name? The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People says. Focus on the positive there, Ralph. Accept an offer that could involve some networking. Tonight, where the fun is. Angie Eagle, thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Coming at you with Cancer. It's a 3-star day, so be on guard. Your domestic life often is a high priority. Right now, your optimism and abundant caring liven up an issue around your home. You will get past someone's resistance, no matter how difficult or stoic this person might be. Tonight, Angie, treat yourself to a favorite dessert. Okay, Spartacus, Plumley, I already did Sag, did the Scorps. Jason Pfeiffer coming at you with Gemini, brother. Thank you for tuning in. 5-star day for you, Jason. Your imagination might be cherished by several of your close associates. This trait not only helps you eliminate unresolvable problems, but also allows you to put the cherry on top of fun happenings. Because of the amount of sharing you do, a partner or loved one could become jealous. Proceed with care. And tonight, Jason, out and about. Jovan Boyer, thank you too. Thanks for coming in. Yeah. Fat Fish, thanks, man. You're buff and swollen too, bro. Appreciate that. New moon tomorrow for Libra, says Siobhan. I don't know what that means exactly. Let's see. What else do we got? Do you want me to read you Libra, Siobhan? I'm going to go ahead and read that just in case you do. So I appreciate all your comments and the stories you share with me, the links you send me. It's all great. Thank you to everybody that helps me out with my research. 5-star day. Don't hesitate to ask for what you desire. Your always present charm soars, making it difficult to say no to you, Siobhan. Be careful about what you ask for, as you are likely to receive just that. Make sure that a leak is not more than just a leak. Help a friend to relax. Tonight, out late. I don't know what all that means, but good luck. It sounds like you're in for good times. David, I think I already did Cancer for you. Yep. So got that one done. Man, so many great comments there. Send me a mailing address via Messenger. Daniel, I'm going to do that. I'll pin you. Bro, Ari, thanks, man. I appreciate the positive feedback. Wake Up News, Zach, sorry to keep you hanging there, bro. There's so many comments to roll through. We got such an active, engaged, lovely audience here today. Probably due to your efforts. Virgo, here we go. 3-star day. You will feel indulged and or cared about, and you are. You definitely are. As a result, you'll spread those same feelings to others. Buy a gift for no reason other than to express your feelings. Ooh. A budding love interest could become a bit contrary. This person wants to be closer to you. Tonight, treat a friend to lunch. So you're having lunch for dinner, Zach. I don't know what that means. Yeah. Like, I just thought of something I shouldn't say, but it's funny. It's a pickup line. Pisces, here we go. Daniel, 5-star day. One-on-one relating draws a strong response from a friend. You feel as if you can make a difference by opening up to this person and accepting some of what she or he has to offer. You don't need to lose some of your skepticism. Only time and experience can help change others' perspectives. Tonight, consider getting some extra R&R. Daniel, I'm actually going to throw my mailing address in there right now because it's all good. I'm not afraid. P.O. Box 2981, Alpine, Wyoming, 83128. Anybody wants to send me things, go ahead. It'd be kind of fun to get some mail from y'all of the snailish variety. Even if you just want to send me a postcard, that would be rad. I think that'd be super cool. So I'm throwing that in there right now. I'm going to pin it. Here in Alpine, Wyoming, we do not have street side, curbside service. We got to go down to the post office.